Toothless versus Smaug. Two powerful and fierce dragons are going at it. And while Smaug holds a pretty massive size advantage, has no problem cooking anyone in his way, well, that's not going to be enough to scare away Toothless and his speed and power. So, who's going to be coming out on top here? Let's get into it. Smaug was a fire drake of the Third Age, considered to be the last great dragon to exist in Middle-earth. But honestly, before really talking about Smaug, well, I actually gotta backtrack here for a second. Talk about dragons as a whole in Lord of the Rings. So dragons were bred by Morgoth, the precursor to Sauron, the first Dark Lord, literally the primordial source of evil. But it's actually debatable about where they came from in the first place. Basically, there are two trains of thought. One is that dragons are simply Maiar, powerful ancient spirits. They're in the form of dragons, just like Balrogs are Maiar in the form of fire and darkness, and wizards are Maiar in the form of men. The second theory is that the Maiar took the form of a reptile, started sleeping around and bred with other reptiles. Then dragons are the byproduct of all that sleeping around. I don't know which one's right, but either way, that should kinda set the baseline for how powerful dragons are over in Middle-earth. Like they're on par with dudes like Gandalf and Balrogs, Morgoth, literally the embodiment of evil. Recognize their power, that they were a key part in his army. Any dragon you run across is gonna be just insanely powerful. And Smaug is really no exception. He was a flying fire drake, meaning he could fly and he could breathe fire. Which, I mean, that's kinda obvious in the name. But there are a lot of dragon types in Middle-earth. Ones that could breathe fire but can't fly. Ones that can't breathe fire or fly. Ones that got wings but no legs. Some don't even have arms or legs or wings, just slithering around like a giant worm. So yeah, you gotta be a little specific. Anyway, Smaug, like most all dragons, was obsessed with treasure. So of course, he had heard about all the treasure that the dwarves were hoarding under the Lonely Mountain. And so one day, Smaug thought to himself, I kinda wanna have all that treasure. Yeah, that looks good to me. And so he destroyed the nearby city of Dale and conquered the Lonely Mountain, driving all the dwarves into exile while he was at it. And that's where he stayed. For the rest of his life, Smaug holed up inside the mountain, keeping all that treasure to himself, until a small company of dwarves, along with one little hobbit, managed to enter into the mountain and wake Smaug up. This is where we get to see what Smaug can really do. For starters, he's clocking in exactly 141 meters or 462 feet. So he is very, very big. He's stronger than most dragons, and so that means that a lot of stuff like rock and concrete and iron and everything is basically like absolutely nothing to him. He can just charge right through it. Knock it over, no problem. I mean, just the force of him flying is enough to knock over and crack trees in half. He's strong enough to shake the mountain's roots. And he even finished up with destroying part of the Lonely Mountain itself. Durability, well, that might not be his strongest suit. Not saying that he's not tough, but I mean, he's facing off against arrows, comparing his scales to like shields. He's boasting that no sword can pierce him. The best that Smaug really ever did was take a bunch of molten gold to the face and not flinch. Which, I mean, that's super cool, that's awesome. Of course, it's kinda undercut by being killed with one hit from an arrow. Like if Hawkeye can kill you, you might not be that tough. Then last but not least, well, Smaug is a dragon. So yeah, he's pretty good at the whole fire breathing thing. Like, really, really good at fire breathing, destroying buildings, burning down whole towns. Yeah, he's got fire breathing locked down. In How to Train Your Dragon, the Night Fury was once considered to be one of the most mysterious and fearsome species of dragons. In fact, until Hiccup befriended Toothless, no one even knew if a Night Fury actually existed. But Toothless was quickly able to show that he was in fact real and really, really powerful. He was known as the unholy offspring of lightning and death itself, and has routinely proven himself to be the alpha of all alpha dragons, squaring off against plenty of mighty dragons and always beating them. Toothless might not be the biggest dragon out there, but don't let that fool you. He's ridiculously fierce and protective and very, very strong. Toothless can carry around other dragons, fling them around and send them flying with tackles. Most all of these dragons weigh at least several tons. Really no problem for Toothless. Toothless is also pretty tough. He's been able to square off against a whole bunch of dragons throughout his life and take a whole lot of attacks along the way, even from some pretty big and powerful dragons, like the Red Death. But of course, a lot of dragons fight by shooting out fire, or explosions, or even ice blasts. Toothless has been able to take all of that too. In fact, Toothless is straight up fireproof. At least the outside of his body is. And while a lot of these blasts can shatter apart stone or destroy buildings, well, Toothless is still standing just fine after all of it. But Toothless's greatest physical asset is definitely his speed. The dragon is lightning fast. And I mean that quite literally. Toothless is faster than lightning. He can outrace explosions. He's capable of supersonic flight and leaving sonic booms behind him. Toothless is stupid fast. He's also incredibly agile and maneuverable while flying, regularly dodging attacks coming his way, just basically flying circles around every opponent that comes up against him. Toothless is quite literally the fastest dragon in the whole How to Train Your Dragon universe. Toothless also has a pretty powerful plasma blast, regularly destroying metal, blowing apart stone, bringing down pretty much anything with one good shot. He's also been able to bring down a whole lot of other dragons with his blast, knocking over the Red Death, which was the alpha dragon at the time, weighed upwards of 10 tons. He's taken down plenty of other dragons with just one good blast each. Toothless is also insanely accurate with his plasma blast, regularly shooting targets out of the air. It's been said that the dragon just doesn't miss. And Toothless became even more powerful when he became the alpha, like to the point where he could square off against the Bewilderbeast and actually sent the Bewilderbeast packing, knocking off one of its tusks in the process. On top of that, well, Toothless has control over pretty much every other dragon because he's the alpha. It's even said that no dragon can resist the alpha's command. So, who wins? Well, let's break it down. Now, there's no doubt about it, Smaug holds a pretty massive physical advantage over Toothless. I mean, feel like I don't even really have to spell that out for you. Just look at the size difference between them. In a lot of ways, Toothless facing off against Smaug is going to be forcing him to fight against another version of the Red Death or the Bewilderbeast all over again. That's the size difference we're talking about here. Smaug is also really, really powerful. He's stronger than most dragons. He can create hurricane winds just by flying around and can shake the mountain by crashing into it. I mean, the dragon did pretty much solo an entire army all by himself. If Smaug is able to get his hands on Toothless, well, then there's not going to be much that Toothless can do to stop him. Smaug is just that much bigger and that much stronger. It'll be a one-shot if Smaug is able to catch him. Problem is, well, how is Smaug gonna actually catch him? Because Toothless really is that fast. Now, it's not necessarily gonna be like an exact recreation of the Red Death or something like that. Smaug is pretty fast himself and isn't a slow, lumbering behemoth. But it doesn't matter. Toothless is still way faster and way more agile. That's easily his biggest asset here. It's countered in some ways because Smaug is a pretty large fire breath that can set whole forests ablaze and destroy whole parts of Lake Town, but Toothless is still fast enough to dodge it. And no doubt about it, Smaug isn't going to be landing a claw on Toothless. He's just too fast. And with that speed, well, you can also say that Toothless is going to be able to land his Plasma Blast on Smaug. Those Plasma Blasts are definitely going to hurt. I mean, just one blast was enough to knock the Red Death over. And eventually, Toothless was able to actually take the Red Death out with a blast. And then the same thing with the Bewilder Beast. Toothless was injuring the big dragon with his blast, and even managed to knock its tusk clean off. I really think that Toothless can do the same thing here with Smaug, especially considering that Smaug has a pretty substantial weakness. His entire underbelly is soft and exposed. It's his weak spot. Now, Smaug has taken a bunch of metals and jewels and melted them onto his body to create a sort of body armor. And while it's very effective against swords and arrows, it's really not meant to stop explosions or plasma blasts. Then there's also just the matter of skill and experience. Toothless has the edge here. Smaug attacked the Lonely Mountain when he was a relatively young dragon, so his only real combat experience is frying a bunch of dwarfs. He's not used to anyone challenging him up in the skies, at least that we know of. On the other hand, well, Toothless has a few decades of experience battling against other dragons. He's already taken down dragons that you would think would be way outclassing him physically. Toothless still won those fights. Smaug would probably give Toothless the hardest fight he's had, but I still think Toothless is ultimately gonna be able to take him down too. Toothless wins.